Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words don't hurt, do they? Some bizarre stories about words and how they're being treated. Welcome back, Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop. On 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Here's a headline from my colleague over in Washington, D.C. for the Center Square, Casey Harper. The headline is Federal Science Agency's Gender and Race Speech Codes Take Criticism. And the lead is the National Institute of Standards and Technology's speech directives for scientists have come under fire for embracing critical race theory and gender ideology ideas. The Center Square recently reported that NIST's inclusive language guidance, which tells scientists which words or phrases they can or cannot use in reports. The guidance, for example, tells federal employees to avoid using the terms blacklist or whitelist because of the racial connotations, and also cautions against using terms that assign a gender to inanimate objects such as a male or female connectors. The guidance also tells report writers to avoid terms such as master-slave that perpetuate negative stereotypes or unequal power relationships. The new language code by the National Institute and Standards and Technology is one more sign the Biden administration is only going deeper and deeper into the radicalization and sexualization of everything, according to Heritage Foundation expert Mike Gonzalez. He goes on to say that it puts the ruinous critical race theory and gender theory on steroids. Now, NIST, they get about $1.6 billion from taxpayers, and you've got the ongoing pushback of these words being used, including Scott Turner, who works for the National Association of Scholars. He said, where most people might regard the sciences as somehow immune from politics, in fact, it's taken over the sciences thoroughly, and in doing so has corrupted the sciences thoroughly. As a result, science is no longer the trustworthy source of objective knowledge and advice that the public has long believed. And you see that more and more people are getting frustrated with the so-called science, especially when in the Chicago Tribune you have acknowledgement from doctors saying that the lockdowns from COVID-19 imposed by government actually did more harm physically and has led to longer-term bad outputs for health. And where you've got excess deaths 15% higher now than they were before the pandemic, pointing specifically to one of the factors being the negative health consequence that lowered the life expectancy of the United States quite a bit. So, people looked at, trust the data, trust the science, 14 days to slow the spread, 14 days to flatten the curve, turned into a month, turned into 2 months, turned into vaccine mandates, turned into keeping kids home from school, turned into shutting businesses down. All of this detrimental to health outcomes, according to doctors, even in mainstream publications. So I think that you've got a lot of people who have concerns about science being politicized, and this is just another indication that that is indeed happening. One other thing I do want to touch on before we get to a phone call at 217-629-7970. And holy cow, I can't believe the time is already flying by. We've got just very little time, but I do want to touch on this, that the National Institutes of Science and Technology defending this, Jennifer Herrero, the spokesperson for NIST, said that it was created primarily for the benefit of staff experts at NIST. Use of inclusive language helps to avoid potential gaps in understanding that could arise from the use of colloquial or idiomatic expressions that are rooted in particular historical events of regional dialects, she said. But people still pushing back, saying that this type of thing diminishes the credibility of science. 217-629-7970. We'll take a call. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
This is the sort of thing that Hitler and Mao and Stalin all used to control their population. You control what they say and what they think. You've got them under your boot. I just like to know, when did we allow the stupid to rule the people in this country, especially those people in Washington? I can't believe the American people fall for anything so dumb.
Well, we have elections every 2 years when it comes to control of Congress, every 4 years when it comes to controlling the White House, and in the State House as well. You've got elections every 2 years. Another story about words. Here's a headline. Appeals court sides with Indiana school in firing Christian teacher who rejects transgender pronouns. So that federal appeals court Friday upheld a lower court's ruling that it was lawful for a school to fire a teacher for not being compelled to speak certain pronouns. So that's kind of where you can see this policing of language, policing of free speech, not just the ability to say what you want to say, but your ability to reject being forced to say things like pronouns. Very much is impacting people directly. And speaking of words, other words here, you've got the FBI putting out, actually this was found through a FOIA request from the Heritage Foundation. They found that there are new terms the FBI is putting into the extremist camp, and among those are based and red-pilled. And apparently they're putting out this information after a FOIA request to focus on the threats of involuntary celibate violent extremists, IVEs. Never heard of that. I think I've heard them called incels before. But in putting this together, they talked about several words. Rahowa, apparently that means racial holy war. But they also included terms like red pill, blue pill, based, Chad, and Stacy. You know red pill, it's from the Matrix, but you also have blue pill, right? If you take the red pill, you're going to see that there's a crazy conspiracy and it's all done to harm the people. Where if you take a blue pill, you're fine being asleep and you'll just go along with the status quo. What's interesting, though, is they didn't get into the white pill, black pill. They talk about black pill, but white pill is when you have a positive outlook that you believe things are going to change. If just good people do good things. The black pill people, those are people who believe that, things are just going to continue to deteriorate and crumble. But those aren't the only words. They also said that based is a word used by extremists, and that means someone who's been converted to racist ideology or as a way of indicating ideological agreement. But Chad and Stacy as well. You call somebody a Chad, they're fit. You call somebody a Stacy, they're fit. Apparently those are words that extremists use. Who knew? All right, Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on WM.